So great. Okay, so again, I'm convening the Northwestern University City Committee meeting of October 27th, 2022, and the time is 7:32. And City Manager Stowe, would you like to, well, I can go ahead and take roll. Julie Johnson. Great, thank you for being here. Dave Davis from Northwestern. City Manager Luke Stowe.
Present.
Great, and Alex Dara, am I saying right?
Yes, that's right, I'm here.
Great, okay, and I'm here, Claire Kelly, Alderman of the First Ward. And I think our first line, our first item of business will be the approval of meeting minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Councilmember Kelly, I don't think we have minutes from our last meeting.
Okay, they aren't on our agenda. So I think there was a little confusion. I'm not sure, and City Manager Stowe, if you could help me out, I think maybe the agenda was uploaded to the, I think maybe the city school committee meeting, but I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah, I think it was posted in the wrong location on the city website. It is posted on the door of the Civic Center, and its minutes are listed on the agenda, but I don't believe we actually have minutes to approve tonight. So I was going to suggest skipping that particular item.
Okay, perfect. Then we'll do that at the next one, if at the next meeting. Great. Okay. Apologies for some confusion. And by the way, I'd like to say that, you know, this within the next week or two, we'll have meetings posted for quarterly for all of 2024 ahead of time, so that everybody knows when those dates are throughout. I'm sorry, 2023. I'm getting ahead of myself. So we'll have quarterly dates scheduled for 2023 this month. Okay, I think we will start with if there are any public comments. And City Manager Stowe, can you tell me, do we have any comments that were submitted or?
I do not, but I will also double check the Google Sheet, but we also can take public comment now if that's helpful.
Okay. Okay, would anybody?
It's Doreen and Ravi here. I would very much like to participate more, and so having the links clarified will make it a lot easier, not only for public comment, but to be prepared for the discussions. So linking very much mechanically or through the wonders of IT would be beneficial, as opposed to posting things on doors, which would be difficult in terms of virtual kinds of meetings anyway.
Right. Much appreciated. Thank you. It was a human error, and I apologize for that. There was a little confusion between city school committee meeting and university city. So apologies. Your point is well taken and duly noted. We'll be sure to have the dates up, all the dates up for next year, and agendas posted well in advance on the NU City Committee website. So again, our apologies for those oversights.
And Councilmember Carl, I'm not showing anyone in the Google Sheet for public comment at this time.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you, City Manager Stowe. Okay, so Dave, would you like to begin with the new business, the number one sale of, can we put the agenda in the text? Is it possible to upload that to the chat box?
Yes, I can do that.
Great, thank you. Okay.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Kelly. I think the first item on the agenda, I don't know if you want to give folks a few minutes to kind of pull that up. But the first item on the agenda is the sale of the 1840 Avenue Oak property. And we have our Vice President for Facilities, Alex Darrow, that's here with us, that's going to talk a little bit more about that sale.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. Earlier this year, or late in 2021, Northwestern did sell that property, 1940 Oak, which is downtown, right near the vacant lot where we host the farmers market. That was sold to the Northwestern Memorial Hospital Corporation. and will be should be back on the tax rolls at the present time.
Great, thank you. And can you, so what's the future for that space?
Well, that's up to the hospital this particular point in time. So we sold it as is, where is, and you know, they have some other clinical operations in that immediate vicinity in some of the newer buildings there. So not sure if they're looking to expand that activity or not, but you know, we're really not privy to what their future plans are.
Okay, and okay, are there any questions regarding the sale of 1840 Oak Avenue from the public or anybody else? Discussion?
Yeah, no discussion on this. I think when we get to future plans, obviously we'll be interested in, you know, anything else that's in the works or under, you know, consideration in terms of either purchasing or selling property, but nothing on this particular transaction.
Julie, I think you're muted.
I haven't got a comment right now.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, if there are no comments or questions, I'm sure we'll have more at our next meeting. We'll move to the second item, basketball court of 1900 block of Orrington. I know that's a big item for many residents.
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember Kelly. And the reason why we put this on the agenda is because I know this continues to be a point of contention for some of our neighbors. And we are continuing to look at ways to minimize some of the noise and concerns that we've heard, particularly over the past year. I know earlier this year, during our orientation week, we have received some complaints about a noise and an incident at the Foster Walker sort of basketball court. And this was an event that was organized by our student affairs. It was, again, it was a gathering to try to get first-year students to just get to know each other in a non-intimidating way. But we do understand that there was some complaints. And so I just wanted to, you know, let you know, as part of this committee, sort of the steps that we're taking to try to avoid these kind of incidents in the future. One thing that we're going to do for certain is to make sure that we provide proper notice to neighbors in that area. If we have a gathering where, for example, we need amplified sound. We did have a permit for this event from the city of Evanston, but we want to go the extra step to make sure our neighbors are aware of any of these types of events. We also, you know, will make sure that, you know, we have an opportunity to, again, speak with you, Councilmember Kelly, so that you can send out emails in advance and alert your constituents of these kind of events. And then the other thing that we are looking into to investigate is potentially putting up signage near our basketball courts, just encouraging our neighbors, whether it's for an event or, sorry, our neighbors, our students, whether it's for an event or for, you know, just a pickup basketball game, to be courteous of the individuals that live nearby. And so, you know, we're having conversations, we'll continue to have conversations at the university about the most appropriate way to do this. You know, one thing I also just want to keep in mind, and that, you know, we all should be mindful of, is that, you know, our students, they're young, but they're also Evanston residents like everybody else. And so, you know, as we try to determine what makes the most sense to try to reduce these incidents in the future, their intentions are not malicious. And, you know, as an Evanston resident, I'm sure you all would understand that they enjoy the same rights as every other Evanston resident here while they're here under our care at the university during the academic year. So just wanted to put that out there. And, you know, I know this is a sensitive topic. And so we are here to work with our neighbors and our students and our entire Students Affairs team to, again, do what's best for our community.
Great, thank you. And I think Ms. McHugh?
Hi, yes, I think there's some misunderstanding about what the problem is at the basketball court. And so I want to clarify. First of all, I do live directly across the street. And the event that you were talking about, the welcome event, no concern. It was obvious that it was beginning of the year welcome event run by the university, and it was going to be probably over at a reasonable time, and it was. And not only that, another thing I would want to clarify is they're definitely have rights as Evanston citizens, but other basketball courts in Evanston close at the latest at 11 o'clock at night. I have no issue with basketball noise between 6 a.m. to 11 o'clock at night, but what we've experienced in the last year is middle of the night basketball playing. A year ago at this time, there was a full-blown party from 3 o'clock in the morning or 3:45 in the morning. I can't remember, to 6:45 in the morning. And that is the issue, not basketball. Basketball at a normal time of the day is just playing, it's exercise. That's all fine. We just need the basketball court to close at a reasonable hour. And that's the issue. That night that I'm speaking of, or it was another night, this has happened 5 or 6 times this year for the first time. The previous 15 years or 17 years I lived here, no issues at all with the basketball court. But this year I've been jolted awake by a basket being made in the middle of the night. And that's the problem. So if you could solve that by somehow having some way of someone, the police checking, not to involve the police, but just to enforce that the court is closed just the way other basketball courts in Evanston are closed. You might not hear too much of this from too many people because maybe that sound doesn't carry, very far to even to the ends of our block, but when we're right across the street, it certainly does. So thank you for your help. And I think the Hercules would confirm what I'm saying. They also live directly across. from the
Thank you,
basketball court.
Ms. McHugh.
Thank you, sorry.
Yeah, I want to weigh in on that too. I mean, what Cecile is saying about late night basketball playing is really true. And we're used to the sound of basketballs bouncing. So during normal hours, waking hours, it's fine, or evening hours. But the issue of music being played is a particular concern for us, because we're not really convinced that it's necessary to have a good, to get a good exercise and an enjoyable experience to have your music cranked up really loud. I mean, one of the things that I would suggest is signage, and maybe this would, maybe a sign that says it's closed at a certain hour, but also, outlawing music. I mean, why do we need to have music? That's what I would suggest. And maybe that isn't something that, the university would want to follow, outlaw all music or loud music or something like that. But there are times when it's so loud that it really kind of rattles the windows and makes it hard to have a conversation in the house. So I'd encourage that, and Bob's right here. I mean, I think he'd say that too. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what they don't seem to understand is the sound of music and just the sound of basketball reverberates from the walls of Foster Walker dorm. It just comes right back to us, all of us on the street. It's it's kind of a sound phenomenon, but it's incredibly loud. I mean, the basketball doesn't bother me, but the sound of the games of the kids playing, sometimes it reaches very high decibel levels. I don't know what you can do about that, but at least let's try to shut down the music. That would be a start.
I mean, and I think just asking for respect, of just to be aware, and when people are young or anybody, it's easy to forget that you're in a neighborhood, especially if you're in the middle of the game. And I totally appreciate that they're Evanston residents, and that they have rights. So those are my suggestions, are encouraging, like you said, respect for the neighborhood, and either no sound or very low sound, and maybe hours. That could be, great.
One thing I've wondered about this is, could more screening help? planting, trees that would screen the sound and reduce the noise level.
Well, let me tell you the background on screening. Because when it was upgraded, the giant overgrown shrubs that had screened it were taken out and ground cover was put in. And so when we first went to the university and talked about it, the horticulturist actually came out to the house with me and visited with me, which was very nice. She said that because of safety, it couldn't be particularly tall. So they did replant some slightly taller shrubs and they put some tall, narrow trees there that, provide a little more screen, but we were told it was safety was an issue, which as a person who walks my dog through the campus, and I'm grateful for that opportunity, I see some pretty tall, giant shrubs all over the campus. So I'm not really, I kind of wonder why in this situation would they had to be nice and low, but anyway, that's my 2
And-
cents.
Thank you. Are there any responses to that? Like, is there a reason we can't get some shrubbery barrier there?
I think that's something we can certainly investigate, but as Ms. Johnson said, there could be some potential issues around safety. And so that's not something we could commit to today without doing further investigation around sort of what are some of the potential unintended consequences of putting additional shrubbery nearby that stadium. Also, shrubbery attracts certain animals. And so we just have to be careful and make sure that we investigate all of the, again, potential unintended consequences alongside with the benefits of such proposal. But I did want to thank Ms. McHugh, thank Mr. Hercules and Ms. Johnson for those comments and for clarifying what sort of the main concerns are. We'll certainly bring this back to our student affairs team and determine if there's a way that we could address some of the challenges that were raised today, particularly around the time that individuals are accessing the basketball court. But again, we just want to be mindful that these individuals, we want them to feel welcome. We always encourage conversation. We always encourage dialogue between our students and neighbors, because again, what we've learned is that if there's sort of a two-way exchange of conversation and respect and mutual respect, that tends to lead to the more sustainable long-term solution in the end. And so we'll go back again to our student affairs team and talk to folks in our facilities department and see if there's a solution that could work for both parties.
Great, thank you. So I mean, the steps in, thank you very much, Mr. Davis. Is there a possibility of having, I know music is one of the big problems is, hearing music playing throughout the night until the wee hours of the morning. Could some signage be in line here to help out so that it's not just all on the residents to go out there and keep talking? And I think we all know a little bit about the nature of the beast of, college students. So would that be, is that something Northwestern would consider, putting up some signs regarding because the music is relentless, right? A few shouts here and there in the basketball, that's also can be disruptive, but I think music just turned on and playing is particularly disturbing if you have to get up and work the next morning.
Yeah, so I think that's a great comment, and I think the best thing for us to do is certainly take that under advisement. We can put the signs up, that's not a problem. I think having discussed with our student affairs team, they're the experts at frankly managing these students. And so let's talk with them about what's the most effective way to try to influence behavior. Because they're used to doing, late, students inside the dorms, I'm sure have different living habits. Some are up late with music and some not. And so they've got to figure out how to get people to live together. And so we'll go back and talk to them about potentially signage or other types of things. To see what's the best, what they feel is the best way to try to influence the behavior in the way that we want. And get the outcome that everybody's looking for. So there's great feedback, and Dave and I will take that on.
Can I ask a question? Do you guys have somebody on site, a RA? When I was in college, we had his RA, there were RAs on each floor, and then there was what we called a super RA, someone who was, young faculty or young administration, sort of living on site. Do you have anything like that at Foster Walker who would be in charge of?
I know we have that program in student housing. The specific circumstances at Foster Walker, I can't speak to. But that's, why it's important to go to student affairs to see what kind of, again, governance and what's the best way that what are the best methods that they have to influence student behavior, right? So I think we all understand the outcomes that we want, and let's get their advice on how best to get there.
Great. And just to dovetail on that comment, I think the RA, I know those exist in some of the student housing. I think there's a lot of venues, Northwestern venues outdoors, like the basketball courts that aren't necessarily within housing, that will draw students from much of the off-campus housing. So it seems like, I don't know if you have that already, sort of an RA that's at large for the properties like outdoors, for the parks and basketball parks. Does that exist? Somebody who's, zipping around on a moped? Somebody who's is there any sort of monitoring that goes on after hours, so to speak, that's not just stationed in student housing?
We don't actually surveil our students' behavior in that way, particularly when they're outside of their dorms. And so I imagine we would get significant pushback from our students if we started to surveil every aspect of their behavior. And that's why, that's why I led with that comment that we have to be mindful that these individuals are also Evanston residents. And so if they're out there in the public and they go to enjoy time at the basketball court, at a tennis court, they should be able to do that without the supervision of any Northwestern University faculty or staff. And I imagine that's going to continue. But, I do think, once they're inside a dorm on university property, we do our best to encourage good behavior and to make sure they're adhering to university standards. They do have a student handbook, and so there are certain standards of behavior they have to adhere to. And we'll continue to make sure that we're communicating that.
Sure. Mr. Davis, I'm just trying to encourage partnership. I mean, even with myself and you all, in terms of being good neighbors in, like this, like loud music and playing on the basketball court, just to figure out a way that together collaboratively we can approach this.
Understood. Thank you, Councilmember.
Yeah, and I mean, I do kind of harken back. I mean, I was an RA for a couple of years, and one of the things that we did, that we were charged with doing, was having the kind of conversations you're talking about. I mean, we are talking about university property, and it's directly adjacent to Foster Walker. So there's somebody there already whose job is to, help students understand how to behave as adults and members of a community, which is, was frankly part of being an RA, is it's my experience. I don't think it's out of line to say to them, look, we've got rules posted now in terms of hours and noise and so forth. And part of your job is going to be to help people understand, people are using the university facilities that, you're responsible for. They're directly adjacent to your area of responsibility. Help them understand how to comply with, the expectations that are, posted on the signs.
Yeah, thanks, David. And that does take place now today. And so, we have those individuals, again, within student affairs, that not only works with our students that live on campus, but we also do a significant amount of outreach to students off campus. And I think that's the next agenda item. So this could be a really good segue to that. But, Councilmember wanted to see if you had any other questions, or I think Ms. McHugh has her hand up. I'm not sure if that's a new question.
Well, yeah, I just want to say thanks, David, for asking about the RA monitoring possibly, because I've wondered if, what changed. It was not an issue. Middle of the night basketball playing did not occur for the, 16 or so years before this year, almost as if the RAs, if there were monitoring going on, stopped doing it. In addition, I wanted to say that it's not just a matter of me being sensitive. I went out and I thought, well, let's see. And I took my decibel meter app and it was 84 decibels when a basket is made. And the noise ordinance proposed by Evanston is for 70 decibels at the property line. So it's really loud. The sound reverberates, as Bob Hercules, I think, was saying. When, the basketball is made, it's not just, this was just a night when just playing basketball, quiet voices, no music. And that's how loud it was. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Ms. McHugh. I wasn't aware of these 3 a.m. sort of basketball tournaments or students playing at that time. And I agree with you. I think that's a reasonable concern. And again, we'll take that back to our team and try to get a handle on that. So thank you for bringing that to our attention.
Great, thank you. We appreciate your attention to that matter.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions regarding the basketball court at the 1900 block of Warrington? Okay, again, thank you, Mr. Davis and Mr. Darrow for tending to that. We really appreciate it. Next item, off-campus student outreach.
Yeah, thank you, council member. Like I said, we do a lot of outreach to our students, particularly at the beginning of the academic year and during the spring quarter, right before we wrap up our academic year. And I do want to say a special thank you to you, Councilmember Kelly, for joining us on our annual Knocks and Talks, and for individuals that are familiar with the Knock and Talks. That's when we have our student affairs team and members of our academic community that go out into the neighborhood, and we walk every single block to visit student apartments. We also talk to students as they walk down the streets, just to remind them of their obligation to be responsible community members, sort of what you were saying, David. But we go into their location, we go into their space, and again, this is off campus, but we also want to make sure that they understand, again, their responsibility to be good neighbors, how to get involved. We try to encourage that sort of two-way dialogue. Councilmember Kelly, like you said, talking is really important. We encourage them, for example, to exchange their phone numbers with their neighbors, right? Because what we've also learned is that, when their neighbors could simply call them on their cell phone and tell them to turn down the music, oftentimes our students listen and they do what's right. We also talked about harm reduction. Oftentimes it's their first time living off campus. So we want to make sure that they're doing things that, or they're not doing things that can actually cause harm or put their safety in jeopardy. We also make them aware of the local ordinances. So they are familiar, or they should be familiar with sort of the noise ordinances, hosting parties, trash. We encourage them to learn about, again, their rights and responsibilities as an Evanston resident, and also, how to get in contact with emergency services and mental health services if necessary. And so we do sort of this comprehensive outreach, and we try to hit on each one of these points. And Councilmember Kelly, I know you had your experience talking to the students, and for the most part, they appreciate learning about this. And they want to be good neighbors. They want to be respectful. Unfortunately, there are some bad actors, and we try to get out there in front of these issues when possible. But we've realized that the more we get out there, the more we talk to students, the more we remind them to be good neighbors, the higher likelihood that they'll, behave themselves in a way that won't cause a more chaotic relationship with the long-term neighbors in the off-campus community. So, as we continue to do this, I welcome thoughts from this committee, from anyone on this call, on how we could create a better sense of community and environment for our off-campus student neighbors, as well as our long-term neighbors in the area.
Yeah, the event sounds really productive, and I've lived next door to a building with a number of student units for probably 26 years now. And I have to tell you, the students next door that I've had to go talk to, and it hasn't been a lot, but somebody every year, it seems, they're almost uniformly totally receptive to those conversations. And I've only had to go back and talk to, one group, I think one time, 1 year. And other than that, it's been a one-time thing. And a lot of it is, I think they don't necessarily, they're not thinking about this, and they're at school and having fun and working hard and all that. They're just not thinking about being in a neighborhood. And, if you just have a conversation with them about, you're having a party right outside the window of my kids who have to get up for school tomorrow, they get that very quickly. And I've had really good experience. I strongly encourage you guys to push hard on this, because I think this has been lacking a little bit in the university's efforts to date. And I've wondered why this wasn't happening. And on this committee, even before you guys were here, encouraged it. I think it's a great idea. I think your students are, overwhelmingly, receptive to it. And sometimes it's really just a matter of education, just, pointing it out to them. And that's usually all it takes. So have at it, keep at it.
Thank you for saying that, David, and we certainly will. And Councilmember Kelly, I think maybe for one of our future meetings, we could invite our Dean of Students to come and sort of share what they're doing to, connect with our off-campus community. I know that our previous Dean of Off-Campus Life left the university, and so there was that staff transition, David, during that time period, but we recently hired someone that is going to adopt that role under sort of their responsibilities. And so we have someone in place, and maybe at that point in a future meeting, we could introduce that individual to this committee.
Great. And I'm happy to go out, just about as often as you're all willing to go out. So I'm ready for our next Knocks and Talks tour. Now, I found that incredibly productive. And David Schoenfeld, thank you for those comments. When I would talk to the students about really reaching out and introducing themselves to the neighbors, you're right. I mean, they hadn't really occurred to them. They're like, oh, okay. They were really interested in hearing about that and how that could really help with relations. And I know the neighbors have a chance to talk to them about what their hopes and expectations are for the neighborhood, so that the students can be good neighbors. We also had a chance to talk about a little bit about fair housing and tenants' rights, which was also, a lot of them had a lot of concerns as tenants. So that was also very helpful to be able to talk to them about that also. So, and I'm interested, and I'd be interested to hear from those of you who are here in the neighborhood of students. If you'd be interested, I'd like to consider holding some block events with the residents, with the students, and also with with the property owners, because obviously in these homes, frequently these are absentee landlords who live in other towns, and I think it's really important that we're all sitting down at the same table. So that those property owners who aren't on site very often, there are a couple that are very good, and I think we all know who they are, who live in town and who are very, who take good care of their property and frequent their property daily. But then there are others who live away and aren't there frequently. And I think it's really important to bring everybody together so that those, particularly the owners of these properties, have a chance to hear concerns from the residents as well as from the students. It's really important that we're, looking out for the quality of living for everybody. I see a hand raised. Is that Miss Payton?
Yeah, hi. How's
Hi.
everyone? Sorry I signed on late, so I hope I'm not repeating anything. So I've noticed that in the traditional Northwestern area for housing, I know that on my block behind Garnett and Emerson, a lot of the students throw their trash all over not in the trash can. And we have a lot of rats. And I know that the city, I just received a message from Ike Obo saying that you no longer work, or the city no longer works with Rose, the exterminator people. So, so far, I don't know the situation if the city's trying to do it themselves, but so far that's not working out. So I don't know if can be some kind of collaboration with the city and Northwestern. I mean, these rats are gigantic that I'm seeing. And I know it's because a lot of the kids don't throw their garbage away in the trash can. And also, I wanted to know, they throw furniture out too. And I know that in the past you've done special pickup, but maybe we need a few more or some kind of coordination with that, because they look like it's getting worse.
So thanks for the comment. Excuse me, what location are you referring to again? Can you tell me where exactly where you?
So it would be the alley behind Garnett, between Garnett and Emerson. That's just my particular block, but I know that it's pretty bad, Foster and so forth. But my block that I'm speaking about, I get a lot of fly dumping because I have a couple of properties there. But like I just saw a sofa out tonight. But a lot of times there's garbage outside of the can. And as far as recycling, like they may not fold the boxes up and put them actually in the recycling bin. They just throw them next to the can. And that's, we're getting really large rats here. I got pictures. I sat there one night and saw about 10 rats pass by in 30 minutes. This is getting out of control. And I call the city for these boxes, but putting one rat trap through the whole alley is not the solution.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Payton.
Councilmember Kelly, just real quickly, thank you, Ms. Payton. We do have a bulk pickup partnership with the city of Evanston that we do twice per academic year. One is at the start of the year for 2 consecutive weeks while students are moving in, and then the other is at the end of the academic year during student move out. We should probably talk. There might make sense for us to schedule these pickups during some other timeframes throughout the academic year if we think it makes sense, right? We haven't noticed that kind of bulk trash beyond sort of the student move-in, that 2-week time frame. But again, if we are noticing more of this taking place, I think that's something a university would look into. So I recommend that we can continue to talk about this, because it doesn't help any of us if the rodent problem continues to increase in that area. So, and also we can do some outreach, Ms. Payton, to the students that live in that area, just to remind them about, proper trash disposal. And again, sort of the good neighborly sort of activities and behaviors.
Yeah, one thing I observed in my alley is that when you have more students living there than the number of prior non-student residents, sometimes the cans are insufficient. Like we had to literally triple the number of cans for a property right behind us, because students were just producing a whole lot more trash than the much smaller number of non-student residents they replaced. So maybe the cans simply aren't adequate.
That's true also, probably because a lot of the people is over occupancy. You get the single family homes that are chopped up into 10
Right.
rooms.
That's exactly what happened to us.
And so, yeah, and so then they fly dump in my garbage. And I monitor my garbage very closely. And, you know, I have furnished units. So when there's a sofa running up on my property, I know it's not mine. So,
Mhm.
so that is correct, David. It's a lot, you know, the cans, and they're throwing it anywhere or on the ground.
Mhm. I just want to say, landlords or management companies, I think, are supposed to post their name and their phone number, way to contact them. And I don't, it sounds like this is something that's not necessarily a university thing, but a city thing, that, you try to reach out to the landlord or the management company. If things don't improve, then the city needs to take action against that building. And then the landlord should be talking with the residents, who are doing that. I know when it's a fly dump, then it's really hard to, unless you've got a camera to really know how it happened. But if it's happening at a building, it seems like that would be maybe the way to start after it. I mean, certainly Northwestern could help, but that seems like it's more of a city thing.
Thank you, Julie. And I know others had their hand raised, but I just want to comment on that. We do have a group, it's a subcommittee of the Planning and Development, a housing subcommittee that really looks at rental, and we're trying to tighten registration, because I think frequently what we have is rental without registration. And if there are rental homes going on that are, rentals, you're right, that you should have access to the name of the management and a phone number. And so we've directed staff to create sort of a roster of rental properties in Evanston. And so hopefully that will be up soon. So you could actually look at it on a website and see if that address is listed. And then if it isn't listed and you believe that it's a rental property, then you would notify us via 311. So I agree with you. I think a lot of that is about being able to properly monitor and enforce our code with regard to occupancy and other. So thank you for that comment. And again, I hope that please consider attending the housing subcommittee meeting. That the next meeting is on November 10th, and we focus very much on this situation with regard to rental, particularly with absentee landlords and over occupancy and all the issues that come with that. So, but I think you're absolutely right, Julie. Thank you. Let's see, Diane, did you have a comment or a question? Diane Valletta?
Yeah, I was just going to comment that, excuse me, I'm on the 1900 block of Sherman, and behind our building is the alley between our side of the street and the Link building. And I've seen, I don't know, several years now of the moving out cycle and the moving in cycle for way more than 2 weeks. The students moving out, instead of taking the trash to their garbage bins, which is on the west side of their building, they're dumping it on the east side of the alley in the dumpsters that belong to my building. And it goes on for several weeks, and it just gets to be a giant mess. They do it in the middle of the night, and I watch them because I'm up late at night and see this going on. And so there's a lot of that going on. And when the new people move in, they do the same thing. So I don't know if they have any sensitivity about, the fact that they should put their trash in their building facility rather than the neighborhood. So just want to put that out.
Thank you. Thank you. Right. I meet often with the management of the Link to address concerns about.
Good.
Yeah, and I think we have an upcoming meeting in November because of issues, again, around management. And, thank you, Mr. Davis. Dave's been very supportive in helping to really address it. Many of these issues do arise from failure of management and also with, proper monitoring enforcement. So I thank you, Dave, for helping to support that effort to bring better accountability with regard to the landlords and the management of properties where students live. And I think because if there's a tight ship on that end, then students also feel, there's a higher bar that's set in terms of what's expected of the students. So that piece is really important. And for the residents who are here, having a meeting such that I mentioned before, is that something that sounds interesting to you all, to have a meeting on your block with the students, with the residents, with the property owners, as well as the neighbors? When I say I mean property owners who don't live on the block. Does
I
that?
mean, I think it'd be helpful. I will say that the property owners on our block are, so you've got the building at Library in Orrington. The owners there are terrific. I
Great.
don't think they need any talking to. They should be talking to everybody else who owns property in Evanston.
I can
But
imagine who one of those is. I know there's some
Yeah.
really remarkable,
Yeah.
and I
Yep.
have a shared workspace that many, I'm sure people here are members of. I mean, we've shared this sort of model lease from one of those landlords who really does a
Mhm.
beautiful job
Yep.
in terms of maintaining the property and monitoring it. So
Yeah. So and the other is Fred Halim, and we've got her number. I mean, things are going fine. So I don't think you need to bring in the owners on our block, at least.
okay, glad to hear that. Okay. Great. Are there any other questions or comments regarding off-campus student outreach? And I'll look forward to our next Knocks and Talks walk.
Oh.
Yes, Bernard.
Claire, I wondered if there's anything that the city of Evanston does in general to kind of welcome students to the city that's basically branded, a branded Evanston thing, because I think there's a lot that could be done there on that kind of occasion that could orient students to living in a community like Evanston.
Thank you so much for bringing that up, Mr. Riley. Yes, and Dave, hopefully we'll get this off the ground. Next fall, we've talked about holding a welcome back sort of celebration on the block of Noyes, from like Noyes Court going west, because we have to leave that court open for access to the Housing Authority building. But we've talked about that, how nice that would be. We had intended to do it this past fall, but it kind of got away from us. But hopefully, I think that's a lovely idea to have some sort of Evanston welcoming and outreach in a sort of an upbeat, enjoyable way. And I hope we can do that, Dave. I hope we can organize that. I've talked with Councilmember Burns, who has the opposite side of Noyes Street. So we talked about, joining forces to create a welcoming sort of event on the block of Noyes with music and a joint Evanston and Northwestern fall event.
It might be just a way to, or an occasion to kind of propagandize about what the merchants want and what the residents want in the way of cooperation and behavior, that kind of thing.
Right, to hold those to also hold those conversations. Absolutely. And I think also if we can start to create, and I think you do have it right in student affairs. You all, when we went out walking, I think you had a form or a sheet, Mr. Davis, that you would give students that talked about sort of ways to be good neighbors.
Yes, we can hand that out at this type of event, but I agree with you. We're excited about planning this for next year, and so count us in as partners. I think that's a great idea. Thanks for bringing that up, Mr. Riley.
Great.
I had a question. So this year you had Kids, Cats, and Kids at the high school. What was that decision as opposed to downtown Evanston? I thought I didn't attend the one at the high school this year, but I just felt like that was a little further away from campus. And seemed like it worked better downtown Evanston. I don't know because I didn't attend the event this year, so I can't say if it was better at the high school or better downtown Evanston, but I just wanted to know what was behind that decision this year.
Yeah, well, thank you, Ms. Payne. Our target population for that event are families and students, both high school K through 12 students. And what we learned after doing it at the high school last year is that we did get a larger turnout from both K through 8 and high school students when we held it at the high school. And we just received a lot of feedback about changing the location to the high school. So that's the reason why we moved it.
And what's your sense compared to the I agree. It seems like downtown was a lovely space. Also in terms of promoting our local businesses.
Right. That was my primary thought, but we have such few businesses down there now. And I just thought maybe that, to help promote downtown Evanston.
Yeah, I think there's a number of things that we can do together, council member, to promote the business as downtown Evanston, which is something that we should investigate further.
Okay, and so next year, we don't know, will it be at the high school again, or that's still in flux? Maybe?
We're looking at doing it at the high school again next year, yes.
Okay. Great.
And I signed on late, so I don't know, what your discussion was. I apologize, but could you tell me what the current enrollment is at Northwestern?
Yeah, so we're just about 21,000 total students. It's about 8,500 undergraduates and the remainder graduate students.
So the graduate student population has increased significantly, correct, over the years?
I think it's ticked up over time, up a little bit from last year, not a ton.
I'm sorry, so it's 21,000, it's 21,000 altogether?
Yeah, I think it's 21,000 kind of full-time equivalent students, graduate and undergraduate total.
Okay. And of that 8,500, about 8,500 are graduates.
Yeah, order of magnitude.
Okay, and do you know what percent are of those 2,100? About what percent are off campus?
Well, we have
live off campus. I mean,
yeah, we have a 2-year residency requirement for our undergraduate students. So about half of the undergraduate students would live on, and about half off, and then the majority of grad students live off campus, either Chicago, Evanston, or nearby suburbs.
So nearly all of your upperclassmen, your juniors and seniors, live off campus?
Councilmember Kelly, I think we should get the appropriate experts in here before we kind of make that public statement.
Okay.
We just want to be careful with that kind of information. And I can, I can gather that for you and send it.
Okay, thank you. That would be great. Okay, great. Let's see. Next item, we have university updates.
Yeah, so Dave, I can do this. Happy to hear it. I think the last couple of times I've joined this group, Councilmember Kelly, we're talking about COVID. So happy to generally not be talking about COVID anymore. So, our campus is back fully activated with all students here. We still do have many of our kind of COVID resources available on campus, but for the most part, kind of back to normal. From a public health perspective, we just ran, some might have seen a monkeypox vaccine clinic in partnership with the city and the county, and that went well. But generally kind of back to normal, which is good. I think the most important update on our side, the most exciting update, is that we've got a new president here at the university. So Michael Schill. Mike joins us most recently from the University of Oregon, where he was the president. He's moved to Evanston. He's been on board for about a month and a half now. So he's spending a lot of time learning about Northwestern and the community. I know he's really excited to continue to build on partnerships between Northwestern and the city. We're planning, I think at the moment, his kind of formal inauguration will probably be sometime in the spring. He'll be working here over the kind of coming months to figure out his strategies and where he wants to focus his time, kind of leading into that. So I'm sure you'll see him around campus. He walks around a lot, lives in the neighborhood, and he'll be in more and more city events here over the coming months. So we're thrilled to have him here. It's an exciting time with the new president, always brings a big change to campus, but a good thing for us. So that's just a high level kind of update at the university.
I think you're muted, council member.
Thank you. Yeah, very excited about Mr. Schill, President Schill. He seems like a very lovely person, very personable, warm person. So, and I forgot, I started out the meeting. I would like to just take a moment to introduce everybody, if you haven't met him already, to our new city manager, Luke Stowe. We're all very happy that Luke has taken the helm at our city, and he comes with such wonderful, deep understanding and knowledge of our city, and has really gone the extra mile to reach out and get to know the community and to understand the community's interests and concerns. And I'm very happy that he's working as our city manager. So I realized I didn't make that introduction at the beginning. So.
Thank you, Councilman. I appreciate that. I was going to drop my contact information in the chat box for anyone to reach out.
Great, thank you. Okay. And let's see, then we have unfinished business. Mr. Figure, David, do you want to, the university's proposed, let's see, is there anything here with regard to, I think it looks like.
No updates on that front, council member.
Okay. All right. Okay.
And can I ask, is that true of both? So there's two topics there. There's the demolition of existing structures or new construction. And then there's other issues relating to planning, land use, building, zoning, pertaining to any of the T1 or T2 or U1 properties. Anything in the works there in terms of, change of use, change of the structures, anything of that nature?
No, we have no plans at the current time under consideration in the districts that are being referenced.
Okay.
So we're just maintaining our properties in the best condition we can afford.
Great.
Okay.
Can I bring up, maybe this is outside the purview of this committee, but with the changes planned for the stadium, I was talking with some friends who live just west of the stadium today, and they think the changes might be pretty exciting, but they are concerned about noise and dust. And is this something to bring up here? I'm just wondering what the university's plans are for protecting that neighborhood as all that construction happens.
So my understanding is, so that is, what is that, U2, Dave, is that right?
That's correct. That's correct, Councilman.
Particular committee, by decree discusses U1, T1, and T2 districts, but I mean, I'm all about residents and questions. So Dave, or would you entertain that question? Would you be willing to respond to that?
What I would say, Ms. Johnson, is next week, Thursday, we actually are participating in a community meeting in the 7th Ward, where we're going to talk a little bit more about that, the new Ryan Field project, and sort of what we are requesting from the city of Evanston. And we're going to also, following that, we're going to host a series of different community forums. It also might be a good idea, Councilmember Kelly, if you simply just wanted to invite us to your board meeting. We'd be happy to come to your board meeting and talk about the project as well.
Great. I will do that. I'll set up a special board meeting for that. I have a series of board meetings on special topics. So thank you. That would be great. And when is the 7th Ward meeting that you referenced? Do you know? If not, we can see it on the calendar.
Yeah, the next one is November 3rd, next week, Thursday.
Okay. And do you know if that's virtual or in person?
They're all virtual.
Okay.
So the next one is virtual, yes.
Great. And thank you. I will plan on doing that. Appreciate it.
Sure.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Well, okay.
Question.
Yes.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I just, on that, the issue of the stadium is a very big issue, not just for that particular ward, but for, I think, just in terms of the relationship between the city and the university. The billboards that are up there now are more obtrusive than I think anything else anywhere else in Evanston. So there's already problems with the stadium over there. Whether it winds up being a venue that generates a fair amount of commercial income as well, I think is a big issue, considering the university's contribution to the city is so meager compared to its counterpart universities elsewhere. So I wonder, is this something that's being taken up by the city council and kind of in larger terms?
City Manager Stowe, would you want to respond to that? Or I mean, I know you mentioned council. You mean in terms of negotiations regarding regarding Ryan Field?
Yes. Yeah, regarding Ryan Field and other developments in and around the university that have an effect on the quality of the natural environment or the quality of the public spaces in Evanston.
Well, I can say certainly this will be a robust discussion because this is special use. There's a zoning question, so this will engage. I guarantee the full council will be involved in very robust debate and discussion about this, and it will have to go through a legislative process. In terms of Ryan Field and its use, potential commercial use. So, and City Manager Stowe, if I'm leaving anything out on that front, please.
I would just add that city staff and Northwestern staff have already begun conversations, and as Councilmember Kelly stated, that there is a number of different processes, including a legislative process that the city council will be involved with, as well as a number of opportunities for community engagement, feedback, and so forth. But yeah, we are working with them on their proposal, and there'll be a lot of developments over the next several weeks and few months here.
I think it'd be good to keep in mind what's happened in the past in terms of mistakes that have been made by the city in allowing certain things to happen that affect the neighborhoods and affect the natural environment, affect the public spaces in Evanston. So hope this is a more open process.
Thank you, Mr. Riley. Yes, absolutely. I think we have to have we have to be at the table working all of these issues out. We're all in this together, and I agree. I think going forward, we can do a better job of ensuring that that voices are not just heard, but respected, and that we're looking at, for the residents as well as the university. And I think we can make this happen in a more sort of fair way going forward. I would happen to agree. So let's see, any other questions or comments?
Council member, I have a question. This is David DiCarlo.
Yes.
Hi, so my question is just, it's kind of a process question with Ryan Field. And I know we do have the meeting with that Councilmember Revelle is hosting next week, but my question before then was just, has a pre-filing or pre-application conference with the city, has that process been started? And if so, have documents and materials been shared with the city thus far?
So I'm going to refer that to, do you know, have applications been filed already? That I can't answer that, but I can certainly inquire, and I can put out a response in probably my next ward-wide email, which should probably be on Monday.
Councilmember, I can answer that question.
Okay, great.
The university hasn't filed any documents with the city of Evanston regarding Ryan Field.
Okay. And thank you, City Manager Stowe posted the link for the 7th ward meeting. And again, I will also I'll talk to Mr. Davis and others and schedule a 1st ward meeting also on this topic.
Yeah, I think, council member, that Ravel's meeting was, a Northwestern's group was there, and they did a good presentation and have a lot of going back and forth. So if maybe you want to talk to her and see how she's running her meeting and the contacts, because I was present at one of the last meetings, and they did the presentation. And it should be a presentation at I'm in the second ward, and I can, I'm affected by it, the traffic. But I think Dave Davis has done a good job with his group coming to Ravel's meeting. So maybe you want to coordinate with her and maybe even do a joint meeting.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Thank you. I will do that. I'll talk to her about a joint meeting. I agree. We do share some, we're very much in the same neck of the woods. So that's a great idea. Okay. Any other comments or questions? Okay. All right. Well, if there are no more comments and questions, thank you to everybody who attended. Thank you, City Manager Stowe, Dave Davis, Mr. Figura, and Mr. Darrow, and everybody who attended. Really appreciate.
Do we want to, I'm sorry to interrupt, do we want to
That's
schedule our next meeting?
Yeah, so I think we'll schedule 4, right? For,
Okay.
Sure, we can go ahead and schedule our next one now. I'm fine. Let's do that now. But then I would like to get all 4 scheduled for the year. So, but that's great.
I mean, what we've done in the past is simply identify a week and a day that would work, and then just repeat it on a 3-month schedule. So if we, second week of January, Tuesday night or whatever we do,
Okay, let me
and then
pull
just
up the
repeat that.
city. Let me pull up our city calendar. Okay, one moment.
Councilmember, is it okay if we do that outside of this meeting? Only because, as I mentioned, I would like to invite some other representatives from across the university to join our next meeting. Unless, David, you feel strongly that we do it right now.
No, I just think we should get it on the schedule, but it doesn't have to be.
Yeah, I'll make sure that
Yeah.
between today, tomorrow, and Monday, we get that scheduled. Our next meeting, and then also I'm gonna, like you say, a regular standing day every 3 months. So we get that scheduled.
Sounds good. Thank you, Councilmember. Thanks, David. Thanks,
Okay,
everyone.
thank you. So I'd like to move that we adjourn our meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, hi. Okay, meeting adjourned.
All right. Take care. Bye, everyone.